I haven't turned into a Jain. The Jains are a sect of monks in India who go around with a broom, like they're sweeping in front of them all of the time, because they take ahimsa, harmlessness, very seriously. So they don't want to harm any living creatures. So I'm worried about harming some of these tiny ants or termites that are all here, because where they offer some food sometimes to this tree, people, or they're just eating this wooden platform. That's more likely the case. So we'll give it a go. If they start eating me, I might have to move. Hello friends, this is the day before Uposatha, head shaving, robe washing day. Hence I'm not attired correctly, my robe is in the wash. This is my second lower robe, spare. I think we might move and go inside. We'll give it a go. The day before Uposatha, the full moon of August. Is that right? Can there be 2 full moons in August? Is it still August? There must be 2 full moons in August. Now, it's unusual to have 2 full moons in 1 month. I'm going to move. Just bear with me one moment. I'm covered in these things. Hello friends. This is my second attempt at this. I started talking outside under the tree, but there were lots of little black ants or termites. When you sit under a tree ordinarily, that's fine. They're under the leaves and the roots and doing their thing. But where, due to this complexity of, or human nature, its tendency towards complexity, as I'm always saying, they build this wooden platform around the tree in order to make offerings and sit under the tree. Rather than just sitting under the tree, people like to build something. Well, then, of course, this gives termites some new food. Like building houses, they're full of termites. Otherwise, you just see termite mounds they keep to themselves. But I sat in this whole lot of termites. I did try sweeping them away like a Jain monk. Jains are pre-Buddhism, predecessors of Buddhism. They are very ascetic monks with very similar theology, but they take it to the very extreme. Ahimsa, harmlessness, is their a way of life, and they go around making sure they sweep everything in front of them so as not to accidentally harm any insects, which is very nice. And I've been to some Jain monasteries here in India, and it's very interesting. They're very dedicated. This is our day before Uposatha, when us monks shave our heads every 15 days and wash our robes. Well, the Jains, they actually pluck all their hairs out. I understand. Now, I'm not sure whether this is still the case, but this is the tradition, as I understand it. But I would imagine you have to do that less often. But the first time, and they pluck their hairs off everywhere, apparently. Anyway, being that it is the day before Uposatha, for you it is the Uposatha day by the time this recording is available. So on this day I will be in Bangalore, our main monastery, where we recite our rules, our 227 Bhikkhu training rules, every 15 days on the full moon and new moon, even during the Vasa. And it's gone incredibly quickly, the whole third of this Vasa, this first month. I'm a little surprised it's the full moon again and it is still August. It confused me a little at the beginning of making this video when I was still over there at the tree. I'll try and put them on together so you can see the outtake, so to speak. Yes, people like that sort of thing, don't they? Mistakes. It's interesting how we can find amusement in other people's misfortune sometimes. I think this is our way of making it better. Because if we all got very hurt and upset when someone fell over, then rather than just the person falling over being hurt and upset, everyone would be. But at least if everyone finds it funny, they're having a good time, and it's just the one person who fell over who suffers some misfortune. It's perhaps another just human tendency, like our tendency towards complexity, human nature. Now it is of course what this practice of Buddhism is about, is to some extent, I've still got these little things crawling on me, to some extent swimming against the current, going upstream, going against the grain, just looking at our natural tendencies, understanding them, ascertaining from where they derive, and trying to nip it in the bud. When I say nip it in the bud, if there's a budding flower, fruit, plant, if you take the bud out, it grows no more. And the Buddha often used this analogy of removing a tree by its roots, uprooting the defilements of greed, hatred, and delusion. Because if you simply cut off a banana tree at its trunk, it just sprouts again. There's a tree up here that when I arrived had been cut off. It's now, in just a month, nearly a fully grown tree again. Well, a metre and a half high of beautiful lush green. But if it had been pulled up by the roots, it would no longer be there. And I always like to reflect on sila at this time of the month. Always it is the foundation of our practice, but it is especially important, I think, for monks and also for lay Buddhist practitioners to use this time, this Buddhist holy day, this Uposatha, to reflect more on sila and ask themselves in the last 15 days, ask myself in the last 15 days, how well have I kept sila? We are reminded by reciting our rules again in the Sima, not Sila, S-I-M-A, which is like our official ordination place and our official ceremonial inner sanctum, if you like, of the Buddhist temple. It's often actually separate from where the main temple is, maybe to the rear or a little further away, but it's strictly marked out, and there are strict rules as to how this is kept, and only bhikkhus on these official occasions are allowed within these boundaries for ordination purposes or for the recitation of the Patimokkha. it's just to reflect, that is again, seems a little bit akin to, let's say, rites and rituals, but it's really more a reminder to really bring to the foremost of our minds the importance, the sanctity of this ritual of recitation of these rules, as it does remind us of the sanctity of the ritual of ordination. It's to reinforce its importance within our minds. It isn't a ritual for the sake of rites. It isn't to try and conjure up magic properties or bestow any virtue that isn't deserved. It is just a mindful reminder. So this time we can look at our defilements, and as a layperson just simply look at our 5 precepts. Have we kept the precepts? Refrain from killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, and intoxicants. Now, if we've managed to, for 15 days, keep one of those precepts, this is very good. If we've more than one, it's even better. All 5, it's wonderful. You're on the path to Nibbana, because this is the very foundations of our practice. Now, there are going to be in lay life occasions when you slip a little, you go a little bit this way, a little bit that way. And these aren't rigid rules. They're very important, but think of them as little, you know, in the boxing ring or the wrestling ring, we have those rubber bands around the outside, and those fighting men in the middle, they bounce off of them like this. So if you imagine your path in life having those either side, and this is sila of rubber bands, you're bouncing, bing, 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 into the middle ways. Not hurting yourself if you go into the side, but you're reminded to come back to the middle. So you're steering in a straight, you're steering straight, but you're holding this steering wheel firmly but gently. You're not gripping onto it for dear life, getting stressed. You're steering, guiding, if you like, you're sailing along rather than rowing. You're sailing through life rather than rowing. And as you may or may not know, even though we are to some extent, well, really, in terms of Buddhist practice, going against the stream, with the right skills, you can sail a yacht into the wind. You don't have to have the wind behind you. You can position the sail, and you can use a maneuver called tacking to zigzag, moving into the wind, going into the wind, but still using the power of the wind to push you along. Now that seems paradoxical, but with the right skill, the right effort, it is how one sails a boat in all directions, north, east, west and south. Whether there's only a prevailing north or east or south or west wind, it doesn't matter. With the correct skills, you can sail anywhere. So, with the correct skills, the practice of sila, samadhi, panya, you can reach your destination of freedom from suffering in this lifetime, of nibbana, no more rebirth. Whatever the conditions you are faced with. It could be that all sorts of influences are coming from this direction, from that direction, from in front, from behind. Temptations. And sometimes we slip, sometimes we fall. But we get up again and we tack into the wind. We carry on. This is why if you every 15 days on this Uposatha, often in Thailand, the quarter moons also. So half, they call it one pra day for all of these days. Even the quarter moons, they have a day when they go to the temple and they take the 8 precepts. And you too can do that. You can take, rather than just have 5 precepts, you don't have to do anything special. You can say, today I'll have no entertainment. I'll refrain from all sexual activity whatsoever, so changing the third to celibacy, just for the day. And I won't eat in the afternoon. And no need to do my hair today. No need to put my makeup on or wear my jewelry or my best clothes. And just stay at home, relax and meditate. And then you're keeping for one day, twice a month, the 8 precepts. And the Buddha recommended this as a very good way for lay people to reinforce and develop sila. And it has a wonderful effect because you realize by doing this, actually, that it isn't a hardship. It's a wonderful way to rest twice a month. Now, of course, the full moon, the new moon, isn't going to always fall at the weekend. So you can be a little flexible. Choose the nearest Sunday if you're in the West and your day off is Sunday, or whatever day off you have in the week. Choose this day, the nearest to the full moon or the new moon, and it's roughly speaking going to be in line with the Uposatha days. Close enough. The point being, that is just convention. We didn't have those same calendars. The Buddha didn't have the same calendars. They worked just very much with the moon as their calendar, as I do, because I need not bother with the actual calendar. You see, I was confused. I'm going to turn around a little bit because I think the wind is possibly blowing this microphone. It's very nice coming through the window. If I put it the other side of that. There we go, I've made a little windshield. I've had one full moon in August, I know that, and then I was working out at the beginning of the first attempt at this recording what day it was, and I said, it's the Uposatha, it's the full moon of August, and then I thought, no, it can't be, I've said that before. But it is, there's 2 full moons this August. So this is why I think the Vasa is later, it started in August this year rather than in July, because we'll have the same number of Uposathas, same number of full moons. Now it's really blowing up windy, as in the previous year. And then next year it will revert back to the full moon of July. Anyway, that's by and by. Like beginning the video just there, and then the little insects come along to try and eat me. It's all about this uncertainty, isn't it? Now I've come in here, the shelter of indoors. It is the middle of the day when most people around here and in India anyway, in these hot countries, quite wisely, really choose this time to sleep. They've had their lunch and they sleep for a couple of hours. And then, of course, they work quite late into the evening. So all the shops shut and this and that, like a siesta time, because it is a bit too hot to do anything. And, well, as I find, some things can be a little bit impractical. But nevertheless, given this opportunity to remind ourselves twice a month of sila is just a reinforcement. It doesn't mean we forget it for the rest of the month, but it's reinforcing our commitment to the understanding that if we keep sila, keep those 5 precepts, that's really all there is to it. That's following the rules. So if you had an instruction book of how to tack, how to steer your sailing yacht against the wind and still propel it along, you'd follow those instructions to the letter, boom, 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 like that. Otherwise, you're not going to get from A to B, from south to north or east to west, if the prevailing wind is against you. So you'd follow those rules step by step, and you'll get there. Now this is the same. You just follow these rules, 5 precepts. Keep these 5, refrain from doing these 5 things. And you will get there. And in addition to that, we have the process of how to do that, the Noble Eightfold Path. We already know there's suffering, and we know the cause of suffering now, don't we? That is desire, which comes from these root defilements of greed, hatred, and delusion. Root defilements, as in they are the basis of of unwholesome desire. Tanha, greed or thirst or craving. Grabbing, wanting, as opposed to needing or wholesome desire to do good, to give, to offer dana, to practice meditation. That is chanda, wholesome desire. But tanha, unwholesome desire, is a heat-generating desire. Whenever you really want something and you're getting close to getting it, you'll find even your physical actual temperature increases. You get hotter. And it's burning you up. Whereas if you go about satisfying, or your activities are revolving around chanda, wholesome desire, say practicing giving, dana, generosity, or meditation, you'll find you start to cool down. Your body settles. It's cooling desire. This is a physical way within our body we can see the difference between desires. If a desire heats you up, either the intention behind it could be a good desire, but the intention behind it is bad. Say you want to give to a charity. If you start feeling hot getting towards giving to the charity, it's because you're wanting to give to be, say, seen to be given, or to give more than someone else, or to give more quickly than someone else. But if you just give to charity whenever, it doesn't matter, no one knows, you just do it like that. It's cooling, you don't heat up. So you can really see the difference between these desires. And we're trying to uproot these desires rather than cut them off. So we're not stifling, we're not inhibiting, we're not, what's the word? It shouldn't result in frustration. It should result in having let go of the idea of what you want, because you have the understanding that you don't need it and it will only create more wanting. Then you do not create pent-up frustration or increased desire through suppression. It's not suppression. You're not suppressing the desire. You're understanding it. And this is how we go about uprooting it. And then it doesn't come back. It doesn't grow back like the plant, the tree over there. You've taken it up by the roots. And this is how the Buddha described this activity. So step by step, stage by stage, month by month, year by year, we continue with this practice. It's not all done overnight. It can be, but usually it takes many years of practice. And slowly you will find that your natural inclination is towards wholesome acts of body, speech and mind, more so, and less so unwholesome acts of body, speech and mind, a more virtuous behavioural pattern. And this really does make for a much easier and comfortable and cooler and smoother existence. And you'll find eventually you're just sailing with the wind. You're never rowing, you're just sailing with the wind. It doesn't feel as if you're going upstream at all. But at first it may, because everything in society is driven towards fueling our desires. So just once a month, twice a month, if possible, take the opportunity to have that rest. The extra precepts, when you take 8 precepts, I'll just remind you of them so that we know. Firstly, the 5 are no killing, no stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, or intoxicants. And then when you take 8, you add on to that, no eating after noon. That's just to simplify your life. You won't starve. Just have a good meal in the morning before 12 noon. You don't need to put on makeup or use any form of beautification, wearing jewellery and your best clothes. Stay in your pyjamas all day, if you like. Just clean your teeth, be clean, freshen up, have a shower, but then brush your hair back or do whatever you do that's easiest and relax about it. It doesn't matter, no one's going to see you. There's no one to impress. And included in that 7th precept, when we're talking about the 8 precepts, is we don't have or use any entertainment. So put your phones away. If you're using them to listen to Dharma talks, I understand, maybe download them the day before or decide what you're going to use the day before and then put it on airplane mode. If there's such a thing, yes, there is, isn't there? I do on the airplane. It means that you won't be disturbed. Whatever you do to make it not disturb you, that's the easiest thing. Make it quiet. Put it on silent. I'm often in the temples when I go to other places and people's phones ring. I find it very disrespectful, not to me, but to everybody else, the people there. They don't seem to mind here. There's lots of phones ringing and things sometimes. But I do make a point of stopping proceedings and saying, now, please turn your phones off. Put them on silent, but often it's unfortunate we don't know how to do that. So make a point of finding out how to do that. I'm sure you know how to do that, but here they don't know how to do that very often. And you see them when they start ringing, then getting all in a panic, or not so. They like the sound of ringing sometimes. I don't know what it is. It's a newer thing here maybe than in other places. But for this day, if we can, put these phones away. I had last weekend, what is it now, Thursday, I think, so this weekend, it's just these last few days. You'll notice there were I didn't make a video or anything like that, because we didn't have much electricity, and I seized the opportunity. That was my excuse to have nothing to do with my phone for 2 days. I just did a little bit of planning the day before and then a little bit of catching up to do a day after that 2 days. But for that 2 days, I didn't have to pick up the phone. There was no need to. And if you can do that for 1 day, you'll find it very beneficial to your practice if you're able to take these 8 precepts just once or twice a month. And the 8th one isn't that important. It's about sleeping in luxurious beds. But I would say to that, take this as the opportunity also of don't sit on your sofa. If you normally lay on your sofa with the TV or eating or having snacks, just relaxing, maybe move the furniture around a little bit, make a bit more floor space and practice sitting on the floor. Now, it's not the most comfortable place to sit if you're not used to it. Even I'm used to it, and it isn't the most comfortable place to sit. As you see, I have no furniture in here. There is some pushed in the corner there, but whenever I move to a place, the furniture goes into the corner, makes for a good camera stand, and I live on the floor. Now, this keeps you awake, it keeps you active, it keeps you mindful of your body's feelings. You're not just relaxing into cushions and then moving every so often to keep that movement going and that sensual massaging of comfort. If you're sitting on the floor, you have to sit upright, you have to sit and be awake, or lay down flat and sleep. There isn't this halfway position. It's all or nothing, one or the other. So that's a big advantage. And if it's for 1 day only, it's worth doing for you, because you'll again find that's invigorating and hopefully will introduce a lot more energy to your practice. So when people ask me about, how do I have more energy? I just feel like falling asleep. Well, if you get rid of all of your comfortable furniture for the day, you'll feel less inclined. Now, if you do feel like going to sleep, then that's okay. Lay flat on the floor. Maybe have just something. I use my Sangati. This is just my outer robe. I use this as a pillow. I don't have a pillow. That's just my robe folded up square. Have just some little square or even a pillow to rest your head. Otherwise you might get a crick, a twisty bit in your neck. But lay flat on the floor. And then you won't be rolling around. You will have, if you need sleep, you'll sleep. If you don't, you'll sit up again and meditate. So that's the 8 precepts. Just twice a month. Try it. Once you've done it once, you'll want to do it again, because afterwards you'll feel it was such a relief, such a restful day that you had. And of course, you'll need to give some explanation to friends, or if you live with other people, that you're going to just have a day to yourself so that you're not too interrupted or disturbed. So this is something lay people can do. We as monks are always living like that, with many other rules too, so it doesn't really notice. But what does notice when we go out into the society, as I do tomorrow when I travel from here to Bangalore, it's a very hectic journey, more so than you can probably imagine or have experienced unless you've lived in a city in India or been to a city in India, which is probably one of the busiest, considering the infrastructure and the public transportation system is quite basic, put it that way. For such a huge population, it's quite an ordeal getting from A to B. And you'd think from all that seclusion, all of that, as I've just described, going out into that would be difficult. But no, you go out into that with renewed vigor, with the power of equanimity. This is the beauty of this practice. You're not only developing these wonderful qualities, these Brahma Viharas of loving kindness, metta, and compassion, karuna, and mudita, gladness, joy for others. You develop this equanimity, so that when you go out to all of the beeping horns and the crowded buses, and even as a monk I have to stand with my pindabat bowl hanging around my neck, my outer robe over my shoulder, my other robe fully on up to my neck and wrists and ankles, with all these hundreds of people on a bus like a sardine in a can, for nearly an hour sometimes before we get onto the metro. Change that bus into the metro train, which is a little more civilized. But you've seen, I've made some videos of these buses. All sorts get on, goats and all sorts can come on these buses. People going to the market with big bales of flowers, and it's very hectic. As a tourist, as a holiday experience, it's a wonderful experience. But as part of your routine and daily life, it can be quite challenging if you don't have equanimity. And equanimity isn't numbness, it isn't dumbness, it isn't shutting yourself off from the world. It's really seeing everything for what it is, as it's just that. It's noisy. Well, that's just hearing more than usual. It's all bright, there's so much going on, flashing lights and colours, as it is so vibrant here. This is just seeing more than usual. The smells, the funny tastes, and all of the thoughts that go around your minds, these 5, 6, 7, 6 senses that are continually keeping your thought process either overacting and reacting against all of this external stimulation, or seeing with wisdom it for what it is, just that, just a change in environment for a short while, impermanent. When you get to the other side and arrive at your monastery in Bangalore, or when you're coming home and you arrive back to here, you'll be back to your usual environment. In the interim period, for a short while or a long while, it doesn't matter, but it isn't permanent. Things will be different. When you see it like that, it isn't a problem. Now you will develop this equanimity also in this 1 or 2 days a month of depriving yourself of your phone, not eating in the afternoon, refraining from sexual activity, no intoxicants. You shouldn't be doing that anyway. And of course lying and stealing and killing either. You shouldn't be doing those things anyway. But those extra 3 precepts on top of the 5, they're not virtuous, they're not part of, it's not immoral to watch entertainment, it is not immoral to sleep on a luxurious bed, it's not immoral to eat after midday, of course, but these help support those 5 precepts. And they also help support the practice of meditation. You have the rest of the day after you've finished your meal to just meditate. Sitting, walking, sitting. Even if it's new to you and maybe you cannot face not having any entertainment, then read some Dharma, or just listen to some Dharma talks. But refrain from reading novels or entertainment kind of books or material, or anything that involves too much thinking and inquiry. So very often you could be listening to these Dharma talks and your mind has drifted off really, and you think, well, I don't think I listened to the last 10 minutes. It doesn't matter. The point is not to be listening to each and every one of my words if you're listening to me at all. It's to be present, hearing the sounds, and hopefully confident that what I'm talking about is related to Dharma and not what you might be hearing elsewhere if you were listening to some form of entertainment. So that's the difference. So you don't have to listen to each and every word. It's often can be treated, Dharma talks in my tradition for monks are often a way of practicing meditation. If you're in a country where you don't understand the language, you're still required to attend the Dharma talks, and they can go on for an hour or so. So you hear the sounds of the words and you'll pick out the odd Pali words that you know, but the rest of the time it's just meditation. Sound is occurring and you're hearing sound. It's just that. So these are things you can practice on these days, a Sunday or an Uposatha day, the full moon or new moon, if it's appropriate to do so where you live. Once or twice a month. It really does help. So I think from after tomorrow, when I'll go to Bangalore, I'll come back in the same day. I'll return to here, and then it will be Friday again. So if I get the opportunity to answer some more of your questions, I've got some questions and nice comments to talk about, I will hopefully be able to fit that in for some time on Friday. And then on Friday evening, again, we'll have the guided meditation, live guided meditation, that is. And it's of course recorded, so you don't have to watch it at the time it's on. But if you do, it's very nice. It means I'm meditating with someone else. And that someone else is meditating with me. And this is quite a useful thing for us to do. If you have a group of people meditating together, they're encouraging each other in their practice. Now, I appreciate my timings may not be suitable to yours, wherever you are in the world. If ever you have any suggested timings for me to do anything of a live nature, if you're in, because I don't know where anybody is really that's watching this, but if I have a whole lot of people saying, please could you do it at this time zone or whatever, say you live in, I don't know, I can't think of a good example. You live in so-and-so a place and it's this time, you say, oh, could you do your live guided meditation at this time zone, this time in this time zone, for the benefit of us. You know, if a few people say that, I'll do it. It doesn't matter to me. I can fit in with other people's timings. I only stick to 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. here because that is my usual routine. But that doesn't mean I can't fit in another hour's guided meditation at any point in the day. Or anything else, chanting or taking refuge in the Triple Gem or taking precepts. These are all possibilities for the future if people want to do something more interactive and create something out of this community of subscribers watching this channel. It's quite possible and quite easy for me to facilitate when I have electricity, that is, which isn't always the case here, but mostly it's the case. So I can be organized as possible to ensure to have at least this phone working for that purpose. So I think I'm tempted to start looking at some of the questions and answers that have come in, but if I start that, then I'll be talking for a little bit too long today. I just wanted to record this today in case I didn't get the opportunity tomorrow to record anything. And that means that you've had some reminder of the fact it's once again this time of the month. It is really my only time marker. It's my convention in terms of timing. A little confusing this month with the two full moons in August, but after next month, September, October, towards the end of October, then I'll be thinking about where to be going after the Vassa. Well, open to suggestion there also if you have any recommendations. But I'm actually thinking quite possibly of going to Sri Lanka because I could just stay here. But I think the advantage of going to Sri Lanka is that I can go on Tudong in Sri Lanka and get fed. Or at least people will appreciate I am a Buddhist monk and the nature of what I'm doing on Tudong there. I can go on Tudong here, but I do have to try and feed myself somehow. And it's not always practical, or it's not always possible to do it fully within the Bhikkhu rules. I have to go to other temples, Hindu temples, to get prasad, or I have to get people, or I have to not necessarily buy things myself, but I have to find people whom are going to support me in that way. At least if I'm in a Buddhist country like Sri Lanka, I will be fed each day in my alms bowl on Pindapat, on alms round. So that's quite tempting, and it's also the weather. It's dry season. It's the cooler part of the year, but the rains would have finished, and it'd be quite useful to go on Tudong and see how Buddhism works in Sri Lanka. Why not? So that's one option. Or I can go back to Thailand, from where I've just come from. But at the moment, top of the list is possibly Sri Lanka, to see how that is. So I think I should stop talking there. Sorry, it's a bit of a bitty talk today. I didn't have anything planned, and just thought I would say something, just in case I never return. You never know on that bus, but we'll see. Maybe I can take some interesting pictures or videos on my journey, but probably not. I'm not so inclined towards that filming on the move thing. We'll see. Be happy and stay well. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.